let's make your guitar solos more expressive and way better immediately. Talking about rhythmic phrasing. All right, we're gonna get a little bit into no choice, but I wanna focus for the most part on more interesting and more compelling rhythms. And this breaks us out of a very boring plateau pattern that we get stuck into. If you do not know, my name is Ryan Gahn. I've been teaching guitar players for over 20 years how to break past that really blocky, boring, I'm just running the pentatonic scale up and down, improvisational plateau that we all get into, right? And bridge the gap between their creative ideas and what they are able to play. If you would, hit subscribe and the bell notification to receive more videos on how to make your guitar playing better. All right. We are going to get a little bit into no choice, but like I said, I'm going to talk about the rhythm of our phrases. So when somebody comes to us and they say, hey, it just sounds like I'm running scales up and down, right? I'm not playing anything interesting. And the thing is, we are at that point, and we want to reverse engineer what it is we're doing and why it is we're just playing those scales up and down. And a big part of that is the rhythm, all right? And if I take this rhythm, it's just, depending on how you're counting it, 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So we want to break out of that. And how we're going to do that is mixing up our note choices, our rhythmic note choices. So if I were to just stick to quarter notes, right? If I put a metronome on and I just do 1, 2, 3, 1, there is absolutely no way to make that compelling. I could start adding my 8th notes, which isn't, again, the most creative choice, but it's going to give me double the choices, you know what I mean? And because those quarter notes are the strong beats, it's gonna give me some weaker beat accents, weaker beat notes to accent that's going to break up that super boring, super monotonous sound. So if I can mix up quarter notes and 8th notes, great. But if I'm thinking of it too much in even patterns, it's still not gonna help that much. An example, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, right? It's not quite enough. Now, the main reason for this is the note distances aren't really that great. They're not really that compelling, and we're not allowing either enough space or enough syncopation and something interesting to grab onto. Also, we're sticking to every single strong beat. The strong beats are those quarter notes, right? Because the weak beats, the ands in between, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and where those 8th notes are, those are now my weaker beats when we're talking about an 8th note count. So something to try. Putting a metronome on. Say, all right, I'm just going to play 8th notes, quarter notes, maybe a quarter note, a dotted quarter note, which is a quarter note and a half, right, tied together, or a half note, right? But what we're going to do is we're not going to play on every single downbeat. So if I put this metronome on, what I like to do with my students is tap my foot. If I can do this, and I could say, hey, I might play an 8th note in between those two strong beats, but not play the following strong beat and let that carry over. Now I have a longer note, a stretched out note that isn't on one of those strong beats. And that is going to start shifting from even sets, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and right? Those are very even, 2 quarter notes, 4 8th notes, 2, right? If I'm just doing that and sticking very much to those strong beats, it's going to get very boring. But if I mix it up and say, I'm going to have a couple weak beats, but that's going to carry over the next strong beat, it's going to be a little bit more compelling. So exercise, metronome, tap your foot along to it. That gives you something like physical. And what you're going to say is, all right, I'm going to play a couple of notes on my foot tap, a couple of notes not on my foot tap. Don't worry about motif, don't worry about repetition, don't worry about anything. Just just trying that much. Does it sound awesome? No. We're getting somewhere though, where we're not just thinking strong beats, and even number of eighth notes, whether it's 2, whether it's 4, whether it's 6, or whether it's 8. That is that consistent even pattern is what is going to get really boring really quickly, even if we are, like the first examples I was playing, switching up quarter notes and eighth notes, perhaps some half notes, some dotted quarters, whatever it is. If I'm just continually thinking in these patterns of even numbers, it's going to get very boring. Now, what is really cool is if I break this down again into 16th notes, all right, I have a lot more options, all right? But again, if I'm just going to think quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, and think of these patterns evenly, it's going to get boring, right? So if I'm sticking too much to the even patterns, still not compelling enough. What is really cool about opening up the 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a is the E and ah. Right, so now I have one and now I have one E and before 2 comes in. The E and the are incredibly weak beats. What I can do is accent them. Now, we don't have to worry about dynamic. All we have to do is play those notes, which are incredibly close to the quarter notes. They're 1/16th note away from the quarter note. If I can play those without having to play the quarter note either before or after, depending on where it is, whatever quarter note is the closest. If I can really mix this up, this is going to give me way more options, right? And if I can land on one of those notes and extend that even longer, that's what sounds cool, is a longer note starting on not a strong beat, one of the quarter notes. Now, what I do not want you to do for this next exercise is worry about, wait, is that the E of the what, Just same idea. You're going to put the metronome on, you are going to tap your foot, and you are going to come up with creative rhythms. You're going to do the same idea, a couple of notes on your foot tap, a couple of notes not on your foot tap. But you don't have to stay so gridlock instruction into 1 and 2 and, right? You're going to mix these up a little bit more, and it's going to sound way better. The trick to this exercise is to repeat whatever rhythm you have played 2 times in a row. Then pick a new rhythm, play that 2 times in a row, okay? What we're doing is we're strengthening our ability to remember what it is that we just played by repeating it directly. What we don't want to do is get lost in our solos. This, right, when people are like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm getting lost, it's because we're not listening to what we just said and then continuing our conversation forward. Music is a language. The guitar is just the voice that we're singing or speaking that language through. If I don't know what I just said, it's impossible for me to continue something compelling and move this continually forward. Reminds me of a little kid tugging on your sleeve. Right? It says, guess what I had for dinner last night? Guess what my best friend Jamie did? Guess what my brother got for his birthday? None of that. It's all just like phrase, something completely different, something completely different. If we can strengthen our direct repetition part of our brain, we're going to get so much better at telling a story and stay compelling. So that is this exercise. You put on the metronome, you tap your foot, you're going to come up with interesting rhythms. Do not worry what 16th note they land on. I promise you're going to be able to do it. I'll give you a couple of examples. Stick to one note at first. We're just developing our rhythmic vocabulary, and then we're going to take it into no choice. We're just developing our rhythmic vocabulary. If we're worried too much about the pentatonic and what note we should hit next, and if we're building tension or resolution or moving to the next position of the pentatonic, one note. That's all we need. Play it, repeat it, play it, repeat it. Okay? Very easy. Tap your foot so you have something physical to go along with. All right? So that's it. Now, just having those extra 16th notes are great because the rhythms are going to be more compelling. But again, you don't have to worry about what was that? Wait, was that the E or the A? Was the and, right? You're just thinking foot tap, not on foot tap, and it's going to be more compelling just because you have those options. And if you listen to like 1, 2, 3, 4, having that longer note on the 16th note, one of the weakest beats, 1 E on the E, 1 E. Right after that 1 and holding that out is what is really going to mix this up. That's like a rhythmic, I don't want to say secret, but a rhythmic, I guess, secret that we don't really know this early in our improvisational journey. That exercise alone can keep you busy forever. It may seem silly, it may seem stupid. I want you to do it, and I want you to do it a lot. Now, up until this point, we were really just talking about our rhythmic phrases, all right, and really allowing some space in there, so we know what those phrases is, what those phrases are, the punctuation in what it is that we're saying. Let's just get a little bit into note choice, okay? So I'm just going to take my minor pentatonic. If you don't know it, the spelling of that is below in a PDF, and it's 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. And then the scale starts over again. 1, or my root note, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, and then flat 3 up here. I can come up with an interesting rhythm, and I want to also give a call and response to that interesting rhythm. Now I'm really starting to say something, okay? So how we're going to develop the call and response, and this is why getting that direct repetition part of our brain sort of primed and ready is really important. So I'm going to play a lick, and it is going to be simple, only a couple of notes, and I'm going to end on either a flat 3 or a flat 7. Now, if you look at the spelling of the scale, a flat 7 is the note before the root note, right? And then the flat 3 is the note after in the scale, the root note. So if I have my root note here, the note previous is the flat 7, back to my root note, then the note after in the scale is my flat 3. What that gives us is tension. It gives us a close but not close enough. Like, these are my tensions. That is my root note. That's my home base. That's my safe feel, right? That just feels really safe and at home. But I want to make it wanted. I want to drive the emotion up by building some tension and playing a lick that just ends on a flat 3 or a flat 7. Now I could do something like this. Okay, that's really, really easy. I'm here, 7th fret of my G string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go down to my flat 3. Gives me a little tension. I can play the same thing. All right, fine. That's my note choice, right? That's my call and response. Now, what I'm not going to do is worry about changing the notes or shifting the notes. I'm playing the exact same lick twice. I'm just adding my resolve, my root note at the end of that lick. If I can, okay, 2 root notes, 2 5 on the E string, 2 of those, 8 on the B, back to 5 on the E, 8 on the E. That ends on my flat 3. Play the same exact thing. Now, that's my call and my response. I'm just adding my root note after my really easy lick that ends on a flat 3 or a flat 7. Problem, that doesn't sound very good because the rhythm is not there, okay? So if I can now play something in those compelling rhythms that I was playing just on one note beforehand, I can now come up with a call and response that is going to be a lot better. All right. All right, I'm going somewhere now, and this direct repetition, just call the same phrase, just end it with a response. Go to a different part of the scale, go to a different rhythm. Those were the same rhythms. Go to a different rhythm and repeat. Go to a different rhythm and repeat. This exercise now, you could do this for absolutely ever. If I put this metronome on, let's try to do a few here. So here we go. I'll do something easier. Doesn't have to be difficult. So just something easy, a call, and then your response after. We can start making some changes if you feel comfortable. Now, what I sort of envision here is somebody saying like, hey, Ryan, are you here? And then I answer, yes, I'm Ryan, I'm here. Okay, and that would be like the... But we can make some slight changes. This goes back to if the direct repetition part of my brain is there and I start making little changes, right? And I'm not just forgetting about it and just rambling up and down. If that's there, I can make some slight changes. All right. I'm stretching out a little bit. The call was there, and then the response was very much so the first few notes of that call, right? And went down in the same way, had a little pull off and hammer on, right? Got a little loose with it, and then came back and resolved. Okay, these are the ways that we can do it, right? Okay, played a couple of those flat sevens, the 8 on the B string, and then I decided to just play it once for the response. You know, little changes like that is going to help. What we're sort of doing here is saying, all right, I want to play something familiar, but I don't want it to be super boring. Then on this side is I want to change things, but I don't want it to be super random. Okay, and this is just the juggling act that we're doing. You know, we don't want to be too random and sort of too out there, unless that's the style. But listen, we're these are not rules; these are tools. Okay, and then we don't want to be too boring. You know, so one thing that is now going to happen with our phrases is a little too much of this question, answer will get tiring. Well, what do? I can have an A, B phrase instead of just AA, call response, and then BB, a completely different call response, and then CC, a completely different call response. You know, as I'm sort of going through my practice, I could play something that is an A, B. So if I have 3, 4... Okay, A phrase, B phrase, A phrase just a little differently, B phrase just a little differently, all right? Ooh, now I'm making small changes and not following just call response. I have A phrase, B phrase, A phrase, B phrase, right? Otherwise, that A phrase, B phrase... Now it's just starting to get a little random if I'm not coming back to the motif, right? If I play that A, B phrase and I don't come back there because those are not the same, if I don't come back to that A or B, then those two are almost like out of memory. You know what I mean? Because I didn't come back to them, right? If I have my AA, I can now move on. If I have my AB, I have to come back to an AB. Otherwise, those will then become random as the next phrases that I play are random. Right? So that last one that I just played would be like an A, B, C, D. Now I'm back to just sort of tugging on the sleeve and not really saying anything. What's really cool is you can stretch this a little bit further and say, all right, I'm going to have a motif. And I'm going to go a little bit away from it and then come back to the motif. As long as I'm refreshing back to that motif, I can stretch out. That thing that I did in the middle was not part of the phrase, okay? Or stretch it out even more. As long as I'm anchored to it, I can decide how far away and how long I want to be away from that anchor and to come back to it. Another great way to mix things up. If we are too structured, AA, BB, CC, or A, B, or A, and then a little bit of something different, and then back to A again, that structure is like, oh man, I need to change. This is the perfect time now Maybe, right, moving up and down the scale in some sort of a pattern, even just going up the scale, right? Almost like controlled chaos. Hey man, I'm getting real constructed here, you know? I need something that gives me a little chaos, right? A little freedom, right? Perfect time to introduce that. Again, making appropriate changes, not losing what it is that we just said. So in this case, I know what I just said. I want to juxtapose that, you know, so I'm making a deliberate choice. Know what I say, juxtapose it, maybe come back, maybe it's time to keep moving on. Another thing to focus on is, are we a little too syncopated in our construction? Okay, so what that means is if I'm constantly doing, do I want, right, the beginning when we were like, this is too many strong beats. If I'm just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, right? But there is a refreshing part of that. If I'm playing a lot of 16th notes or syncopation and really mixing up those rhythms like we were doing, coming up with really cool motifs, watch what you're doing. And maybe it will be time for, and holding out a whole note or even longer, you know, or developing a motif that's, you know, just another way to mix things up. So don't get caught too much in the trap of, now I got to do all this, okay? If you find yourself getting lost, I call it a cul-de-sac. Some people call it a dead end. Has a little bit of a panic to it. I call it a cul-de-sac because you're kind of spinning right around this cul-de-sac and you don't know how to get out. And you revert back to this sort of, I'm not going anywhere. Stick to something super simple. It's going to give you some nice hard ground to get to, right? So to dig your heels in and then kick off and move further. All you have to do, anytime you start getting lost, it's so deliberate and easy. That's the thing, is you're getting further and further away from deliberate and easy when you start getting lost and you go into a panic mode. It's almost like when you're talking to somebody and you're nervous and you're just sort of like blabbering. Stop, slow down, take a breath, something really easy. Dig your heels in. That's a great place to now launch off from. So that's a great way to get out of sort of like a panic mode. So those are the secrets there at the end. If you have any interesting ways that you get out of your boring, repetitive guitar solos, I would love to hear that below. Now, I have a free training, the link is in the description and the first comment, that talks about why we get stuck in these particular plateaus in 3 really great ways to break through them. It's sort of a mindset way of learning, and you can take those, you can apply those directly to your guitar solos, and then take those mindsets on further into your learning so you don't continue to get stuck in your plateaus. So check that out, hit subscribe, hit like if you're enjoying what you're seeing, and I will see you in the next video.